Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Variable Y Minute with your host, The Variable Y. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope you all enjoyed last night's special show with Variable Jr. I thought it would be very fun to have him on the show to see what it would look like, I guess, to go into a time machine. Just watch my son talk about how passionate he is about watching professional wrestling. Really does take me back about, I'm not going to say how long, a couple of years, maybe a decade or two, to when I was his age, and I would watch wrestling, and it was something that I shared with my dad as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. Tonight, like I was saying before, like I said yesterday, tonight we are actually going to revisit something. I wanted to wait until last night's game was over because not that I needed confirmation, but I just wanted to wait until last night's game was over, and hopefully it would give more people confirmation. So let me just give a little bit of background here. When I talk about sports and I talk about guys who are in it and I talk about them, I try to talk about them very objectively, and I try to talk about them on the plane of their peers. Obviously, the people who are in professional sports or even college sports or, semi-professional, obviously these people are extraordinary athletes. They're very good at what they do, and they're way better than any of us who talk for a living, or any of us who talk for a hobby, or any of us who do anything like this. So it's all relative. When I say something about a player, I'm not comparing them to your average citizen. I'm comparing them to your average player in whatever league they're in. And I'm judging them by that, and mainly not just on their talents, but I'm also judging them on the coverage that they receive. How some players will tend to get, not undue, but how some players will tend to get coverage and it's very flattering, and other players who seem to be of their same talent level will not get quite as flattering coverage. So whenever I bring those things up, that's what I'm speaking of in general. It's not about the person as a person. I don't know them as a person. They could be the greatest person to ever walk this earth, and I hope they are. But that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I'm going to talk about. That's not what I would like to bring light to, because honestly, for the most part, for some of the people who I bring this stuff up about, there have been plenty of people who want to sing the praises of just how great they are, with little to not very many reasons why. And if there are reasons, those reasons were so long ago that it's time to start speaking of them in the present and stop speaking of them in the past. So I say all of that to say this. I don't know if you guys remember, but about a year ago, I did a show where I said, I think Carson Wentz is just a guy. I think he's just, an average quarterback. And somebody, I don't know if it was a real person or a bot, but somebody got all in their feelings and wanted to tell me, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. You must not watch that much football. And I thought it was funny because when I said it, I thought I was very clear about my positioning on that. And I thought I was very clear about the reasons why I was saying that. But again, I thought it was funny. Now, just a tad bit of background on me, guys, just so you know where I'm coming from when I say this. So the sports broadcasting business is something that I've wanted to work in since I was 18 years old. It's a business that I actually have worked in. I worked behind the scenes doing radio in a top 10 market for 5 years. It's a business that I got out of. I thought I wanted to transition into something else. I was forcibly pushed out of that position, and then life and circumstances changed, and now I have the opportunity to get back into it, and that's what I'm doing right now. So when I talk about sports, I try my best to talk about sports as the way I think a broadcaster would do it. So I try to talk about sports. I try not to be very emotional about it. I try to just be as diplomatic about it as possible. Just state what I think the facts are and try to have evidence to back up my arguments. So when I say something and somebody says, "Oh, you don't know football," to me that sounds like, "Oh, okay, so the facts I brought to this argument really don't matter to you. What matters to you is that I hurt your feelings because I talked about your quarterback." And again, I totally understand. I understand what fans do, but you just have to understand that's not how I look at it. I'm just looking at what I see, and I'm looking at the numbers that go along with it, and then I'm going to comment on it. I'm not necessarily a guy who just looks simply at stats because, as we all know, or all of us should know, you can have stats that can show just about anything. You can have stats read and show anything you want them to, as long as you have enough numbers to back them up. But what I am looking at is more so how they play and what is contributing to that. So, and the reason why I say all of that is, I hope that you guys watched the game last night. It wasn't necessarily a very compelling game, but I hope you watched the game last night, and I hope you got the same thing out of it that I did, that, again, Carson Wentz just looks like a regular old guy. He doesn't look like, he doesn't look like the world beater that we were told he was. He doesn't look like the guy who signed a contract a couple of years ago that was well beyond what he earned at that point. Let's not forget that he is a guy who didn't stay healthy their first two trips to the playoffs. Last year, they went to the playoffs. He guided them to the playoffs. He deserves some credit for that, but he couldn't even finish that playoff game. So he's just not the guy who he is supposed to be or who he was built up to be. Do I think that he's a terrible quarterback? No, not necessarily. Do I think that before his injury, was he on a trajectory of being a great quarterback? Absolutely, I think he was. But injuries play a factor. And I think that it's time for the world to acknowledge that. And it's time for the world to acknowledge that Carson Wentz is just not a great quarterback. And for those of you out there who do like stats, I've got his stats pulled up right now. So let's look at that. Let's look and just see just how great he is. His first game, they lost to a Washington football team. He completed 57% of his passes for 270 yards, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. His second game, they lost to the Rams. He completed 60% of his passes for 242, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. They tied with Cincinnati. Guys. I could keep going on and on and on. But I think you guys understand my point. And then if you saw the game last night, you definitely understand my point. And I don't know if you guys maybe saw the whole thing, but there was one time, I believe it was in the third quarter. Yes, it was the first drive in the beginning of the third quarter, and they were marching the ball down the field. It was 4th down, and Doug Peterson decided to go for it. And Carson Wentz threw a ball in the end zone to the opponent. There was nobody there. Now, could it be that his receiver got the route mixed up and ran the wrong routes? Possibly. Could it be that Wentz was trying to throw him open, threw him to a spot that he thought he should go to? Possibly. All I'm saying is, if this were another quarterback, hell, guys, up until last year, people were questioning Dak Prescott. And both of these guys came in the league at the same time. And if you compare their numbers, Prescott's numbers are better up to this year in his injury. Now, Wentz had an injury, so you have to account for that. But Dak, Dak has Ezekiel Elliott. Okay. They went out and got him Amari Cooper. All right. And this year they got him a real number 2 in Oh my gosh, what's my man's name? CD Lamb, excuse me. So yes, I take all that. And yeah, okay. So Carson Wentz, they're not doing him any favors with the drafting, and they have running back by committee, and all these guys are hurt, and blah, blah, blah. I understand all of that, guys. All I'm saying is, not a lot of quarterbacks get this much leeway when they're playing poorly. And if everybody were being honest, we could all admit he's not playing well. That's it. So I hate to title this show the same title as a show in the past, but Carson Wentz is just a guy when it comes to NFL quarterbacks. He is not a savior, at least not right now. Maybe if he gets some better coaching, maybe if he gets his confidence back, he could be the guy. But as of right now, he's just a guy. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me tonight here on the Variable Y Minute. We do this show whenever we want to here on YouTube. Please check me out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram at Variable Y, all together. And then you can find me on Twitter at _variable. And I'll have some nuggets there as well. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you have a wonderful night. Kiss and hug your loved ones. Wash your hands. Stay safe. And we will talk to you later.